I write articles very infrequently or get interviewed very infrequently on the subject of the general level of the market itself. Probably only 4 or 5 times in 40 years have I really declared myself about what I thought about the general level of the stock market. And it turned out I was pretty premature actually in October of 2008, as was pointed out to me by a number of people. But I felt, and what I said in that article really was that it would be way better to own stocks over the long term than to follow a policy of buying either long-term bonds or holding cash. And I knew I could make that statement, and I would be eventually, I thought odds were very high I'd be proven right on that. But I don't know what the stock market's going to do next week or next month or next year. I don't have any idea. People always think I do. I know I don't have any idea. I don't think about it. It doesn't make any difference. Charlie and I can't recall a discussion we've ever had on it, basically. But I do think over the next 10 years or 20 years, I'd much rather own equities, including U.S. equities. I'd much rather own them than cash, or I'd much rather own them than a 10 or 20-year bond. But that's partly because I'm very unenthusiastic about the alternatives. I think equities are likely to give you some positive, modest positive, real return over time. But beyond that, I really don't know anything. Charlie?
Well, that's a cheerful thought that equities are the best of a bad lot of available opportunities.
Do you disagree with it?
No, I think you're right. I think people should get accustomed, on average, to doing less well in their investment portfolios in real terms.
Charlie and
I think we're in for a long period of where the ordinary result is not going to be very exciting.
But we like owning businesses, and we're in a position where we can own entire businesses. But we also like partial ownership of businesses, and we want to own businesses where we really think they have some competitive advantage over time, and where we feel good about the management, and where we think the price is reasonably attractive. I think you can find things like that now, but they aren't dramatically attractive at all. They do beat, in my view, holding cash or 5, 10, or 20-year bonds.
You frequently speak favorably about the prosperity of future generations, that our children and our children's children will live better than us. How much of our current prosperity do you attribute to us being able to get oil out of the ground at a fraction of the cost of its value to us in the economy? And how will we be able to live better in the future when we can no longer get more and more of this free lunch and we become dependent on more dilute sources like solar and wind? Couldn't this turn out like trying to satisfy a drug addict with a Coca-Cola?
The oil business, obviously the discovery of oil, when was it, about 1850 something, Colonel Drake at Titusville, Pennsylvania or something, that changed the world in a very major way, and it was only 150 years ago. And since then we've been sticking straws into the earth at an incredible pace. There's over 500,000 producing wells in the United States. Would you believe that? I mean, 11 barrel or 10 barrels a day average or something of the sort. I mean, we have really exploited what may have taken, I don't know, what is hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years to create. It's contributed in a huge way to the prosperity of the world, but the world, in my view, will not be dependent upon that particular, call it windfall, for the next 100 years. And Charlie knows way more about this subject than I do, but there will be other free lunches available, whether it's solar or there's lots of possibilities. Don't ever give up on humans' ability to innovate in ways that create solutions to problems that seem insolvable. We've faced all kinds of predictions all of the inventions having been invented. There's some famous statement, I forget who made on that. I mean, we haven't really started. I mean, if you could pick a time in history when you would want to be born, leaving out the nuclear, chemical, and biological threat, which is something to leave out, but I would pick today. The world has a bright future. Now, Charlie will give you the other side of that.
Well, no, I think you're failing to recognize something really important. In the technology of 150 years ago, they really needed the oil to get ahead. In our advanced civilization, which has benefited from this last 150 years of technological, 150 years of technological expertise, we can get ahead without the oil if we have to. Now, Freeman Dyson is not a physicist who is not an economist but a genius, and he's been very good at pointing out that it isn't that horrible to contemplate a world which goes off oil, provided that world is as rich and knowledgeable as ours is now. So the fact that they couldn't have got to where we are now without the oil starting 150 years ago does not mean we can't do without the oil if we have to. We need the oil and the gas and the coal eventually for chemical feedstocks more than we need it for keeping warm and propelling our vehicles.
And the adjustment, fortunately, will be fairly gradual. I mean, it is not like 85 million barrels a day goes to 50 million or something in 5 or 10 years. So it's a workable period of adjustment, in my view.
If it doesn't bother Freeman Dyson, who knows more about it, I don't think it should bother you too much.
He's always pulling that on me.
What is the most important thing that you have learned from Charlie? Thank you.
Most important thing I've learned from China?
China, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's the most important thing you've learned from China, Charlie?
It has some very unusual people in BYD.
I've learned
no other lesson is as important as that one.
I've learned they like Sprite better than Coke. Sprite outsells Coke in China by 2 to 1, but they're both growing dramatically. I think China is an amazing economy. I mean, there's just under 4 million. There were 290 million in China in 1790. Just as smart, just as hardworking. Resources of the land, the minerals, everything, climate, very, very similar. And for 170 years or so, relatively little progress was made in the standard of living for those people, like I say, who had all the native abilities that America had. But, in the recent decades, the potential of the Chinese is being unleashed, and it's huge. And, I think it's very, very interesting to watch. Charlie and I and a group of some of the directors are going over there at the end of September, and I was over there a couple of years ago. It's a sight to behold. But in terms of specific lessons, they haven't taught me how to eat Chinese food, I will say that.
I think I always knew that the Chinese people had an enormous potential for huge and rapid progress, because I could see that in all the Chinese Americans that I dealt with. And indeed, people came in here as Chinese coolies, in effect slaves, and they rose so rapidly that it was a marvel. So I always knew that China had a potential to be a huge credit to human civilization, but I think I underrated how fast it could happen. China is setting a new record for advancement of civilization at a very rapid rate. It's fun to watch.